Hey guys, Matt Driver here, 5x3 Fishing, and we're here today to talk about fish care in the heat of the summer. First of all, let me say, fishing in the heat of the summer is not always the best option. I know a lot of tournaments are evening tournaments, or they're early morning tournaments. They're not necessarily the heat of the day. Bass and FLW usually stop their events until the fall. But either way, if you're out there and you're fishing in the heat, we're going to talk today about what you can do for those fish. Let's start off and talk about why fish stress so much in the heat. As the water temperature really gets above 80 degrees, you start to see your dissolved oxygen levels, not to be Mr. Scientist here, but you see your dissolved oxygen levels in that water start to decrease. That's the reason your fish go deep. They try to find a thermocline. They get down there, probably the most healthy water they can possibly find. And some of these shallow lakes, the fish adapt. You used to talk about lakes like Lake Weiss here in the southeast. A lot of the river lakes, the fish stay shallow year round, and those fish are more used to warmer water, and you're used to the low dissolved oxygen levels. But what we're going to talk about today is when you finally get those fish in, on what to do to make sure that you don't have a fish to die. And one of the ways that we're going to start it off is making sure your equipment is working correctly. Make sure both of your live well pumps are working. If you fish a lot of your BFLs, your Bass Weekend, even your major events, they want to make sure that your live wells are working. Well, just because you have a little trickle coming out, or you see that there's bubbles, doesn't mean it's working correctly. Make sure that your pumps are at full function. And the next thing, making sure that your live wells are clean. That's always a big discussion on what should I do? What should I use? Should I use bleach? Should I use ammonia? Should I scrub it out with salt? What should I do? Well, two things that I do that have seemed to work the best is I either use nothing at all. I use a pressure washer, and I go in there and I clean my live wells out. I run water through them a lot, make sure all my piping is cleaned out good. Or I use something like the Babes well wash here, and it's one of the first products on the market that was meant to clean out live wells. And of course, people say, well, you're trying to make money here. I get nothing from Babes, and the reason that I like it is, one, that it cleans it out real good, but it also has a probiotic that it stays in the live well, and it keeps things from growing back in there, and it's healthy for the fish as well. And I know a lot of the pros are starting to use it on tour now to clean those live wells out. Once your live wells are cleaned out, your pumps are working correctly, you're out there on the water. The one thing is, if you've ever fished in the heat, you've got both live wells filled up, and you open those live wells and stick your hand down in there, it feels like a sauna at that water that's evaporating off of it. And I'm going to show you a few things that I do to make sure that water and that temperature in that live well stays cooler than if you didn't do anything at all. One of the first tricks that I do is I've got a large white, almost beach towel style. It's plenty long enough to cover both live wells. It's very thick, and what I do is I keep it folded up at least 3 times, keep it good and thick. And what I'll do is I'll soak it in the water, I'll leave it in my cooler. And first part of the morning, it's not really that important. Your temperatures outside are still kind of cool, but as that sun starts to get up and starts to bake on your live wells, what I do is I soak this towel and I lay it over both live well lids like this. When it's wet, it's going to be good and heavy. I'm not saying run down the lake with it on there like this, maybe put it in the floorboard till you get to your next spot. But what that does is, as that sun beats down on that live well, this wet towel right here will absorb that heat, and it insulates it that much more. There's lots of things you can do. A lot of your newer boats has really good insulation, but I'm all about overkill. I don't want these fish to die, so I'm going to do whatever I can to keep that from happening. So first thing that I do is take this towel, make sure that it's folded over, make sure that it's plenty big enough to cover both lids, and I lay it over it. That way the sun is not baking into those live wells. Something else I do, I carry a cooler with me, and make sure that I have plenty of ice. Guys say, oh man, just shove ice in that live well. I personally don't do that. What I do is I take a jug here. I've just got a half-gallon milk jug, and what I'll do is I'll make 2 or 3 of these up, and I'll put a little bit of either Rejuvenade or G's Juice, something that's going to help those fish, and I just put the recommended amount inside this, and I fill the rest with water. And then what I do is I stick them in the freezer And if you've ever put ice in a live well that's, you know, just chunked ice, it's gone instantly. So what I do is I leave this and I freeze it solid. And what I'll do is I either put this in the other live well. Sometimes I'll put it in with fish. You don't want to make sure it's not too big, and it tends to float just like the fish are in there. But I either put it in the other live well, and then what I'll do is once it's frozen and I go to put it in the live well, I'll take the lid off of it and let it just kind of ooze out a little bit. It takes forever for these to thaw out. So usually 2 to 3 of these a day, and it'll keep your live wells good and cool without shocking the fish. I mean, that's one thing that we don't want to do, is take 85-degree water temperature, make it 50-degree water temperature instantly. Those fish are going to go into shock, and it's not always good for them. So, you know, keep your cooler, keep plenty of ice, keep plenty of cold rags in there. Also, keep your frozen Rejuvenate or your G's juice in a half-gallon jug like this. Maybe put them in your cooler, keep them good and frozen. Something else, you know, you get out there and you're catching fish, and everybody wants to, you know, just boat flip and let their fish lay on the deck of their boat. If you will reach down and fill the deck of your boat out there in the heat, it is blazing. So, you know, in my opinion, if your tournament allows it, I like to use a dip net. I like to scoop those fish up, keep them from being in the boat, taking that slime coat off of them. Anything that we can do not to stress that fish out, it's a good thing. You see a lot of even the pros, what they're doing is when they don't have a net, they bring those fish, especially bigger fish, and they go to their driver's seat or their passenger seat. They lean down and they scoop that fish up. They don't allow that fish in the heat to lay on the deck of the boat for any length of time. Keeping those live wells cool. But one thing that we don't think about, of course we want these fish to live as long as possible, and we come in to weigh in. A lot of us even fish, like I said, the night tournaments, and what do? We put all our fish in there and we say, hey, is this enough water? Yeah, and your partner goes, yeah, it looks good to me. We've just got enough to cover those fish's backs, and then next thing you know, they spend 15 to 20 minutes, sometimes even longer, depending on how long the bag lines are, with very minimal water. So my suggestion is, and something I've started doing here lately, especially when you have bigger fish, is filling those bags up. You know, we don't want you to break your back, but you know, those fish have to work harder to breathe when it's hot, so we have to work harder as fishermen to keep those fish good and alive. Use 2 bags. Take two bags with you, especially if you have larger fish, and you know, separate your fish out. Same thing with your live wells in the back. If you have a big fish, what's the one fish that we always see dead at weigh-in? Is a bigger fish. It's just like a big person has to work extra hard. Those big fish work hard when it's hot. You know, just like the couch potato that's had a few too many donuts gets out there and goes and mows the yard. He's going to be sweating before the guy that's really fit. And it's the same thing with those big fish. You know, you want those big fish to live and survive. So separate them in your live wells. Keep your big fish over on one side. Give them special attention. Make sure that you check those live wells often. And also, don't leave those. If you have to, if you see that the bag line is long, don't sit out there in that bag line and just have your fish in a bag with their backs barely covered up with water. Stay in your boat. Let that line die down. If it's a trailer to weigh in, leave them in your live well. Leave your aerators running. And one other thing that I just thought about, if you know, guys out there say, oh, you know, I didn't realize my fish died, my equipment quit working halfway through the day. There is a way to make it work if your aerators quit working. One of those things is of course, when you're out in the main channel and you want to refill your live wells, what you do, crack your live wells open, put your boat in reverse, and what you'll do is you'll fill those live wells up with good fresh water, shut them off. And I always keep an extra battery operated aerator in my boat, and what I'll do is I'll put it in there. There's lots of equipment out there that makes this experience a whole lot better. That's good for those fish. So get out there on the internet, search around, and find out what's going to be best for you. But I hope that what we've talked about today will help you, and just start the discussion. I mean, if I forgot something, if you've got something, please leave it in the comments below, and you know, educate the rest of us. You know, we all can't know everything, so whatever works best for us, we need to do it. But main thing we want to do is keep these fish good and alive throughout the summer months, and that way our resources will be there for our kids. So guys, thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you later.